Welcome back to QURANxINSIGHT, where we tackle the most challenging moral questions of our time, seeking clarity through global knowledge and spiritual guidance. Today, we confront a word that carries the weight of history's greatest crimes: genocide. It is a term we use frequently in the modern era, but its definition is precise, its history is devastating, and its moral implications are absolute. What exactly separates war crimes or mass killings from the specific, targeted horror of genocide? And what does a tradition rooted in justice and the sanctity of life say about this ultimate act of dehumanization? We will embark on a difficult but necessary journey to define genocide legally, examine its insidious mechanisms, and ground our understanding in a universal moral framework. Our analysis will draw upon international law, historical atrocities, and the ethical wisdom of the Holy Quran. This is an exploration not just of fact, but of the ultimate moral imperative to protect and honor human life. Let us begin by turning to the moment this term was cemented in global consciousness and law. The word genocide itself was coined in 1944 by Polish-Jewish lawyer Raphael Lemkin, combining the Greek word genos, race or tribe, and the Latin side, killing. Lemkin created the term specifically to describe the systematic persecution and extermination perpetrated by the Nazis, particularly against the Jewish people. Following the atrocities of World War II, the international community realized the need for a legal instrument to prevent future holocausts. This culminated in the 1948 United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. This convention remains the single most important document defining this crime under international law. The definition is highly specific and rests on one critical element: intent. Genocide is defined as any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. The acts themselves include killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm, inflicting conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction, imposing measures intended to prevent births, or forcibly transferring children. Crucially, it must be proven that the perpetrators had the specific goal of eradicating the group's existence as a distinct group. This intent to destroy is what legally elevates genocide above other terrible crimes like crimes against humanity or mass murder. History provides chilling examples that perfectly fit this legal framework, demonstrating the methodical nature of the crime. The Holocaust, 1941-1945, which inspired the convention, targeted the Jewish people for systematic annihilation across Europe, driven by racial ideology. The 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda saw Hutu extremist groups slaughter an estimated 800,000 people in just 100 days, driven by ethnic classification and dehumanization. This tragedy was carried out with shocking intimacy, relying heavily on machetes and communal participation, illustrating the depth of polarization. The Cambodian genocide, 1975-1979, under the Khmer Rouge, targeted groups based on their social and economic status, intellectuals, urban dwellers, and religious minorities, in a twisted pursuit of a purely agrarian communist state. These historical events reveal a terrifying pattern that often follows predictable stages, which scholars have meticulously documented. The first stage is classification, where societies distinguish between us and them, often along ethnic or religious lines. This is quickly followed by symbolization, where names, colors, or mandatory identification are used to visibly separate the target group, e.g., Jewish stars, ethnic IDs in Rwanda. The third, and perhaps most devastating stage, is dehumanization. The target group is stripped of their humanity, referred to as vermin, cockroaches, or cancer, making it psychologically easier for ordinary people to participate in their murder. Once dehumanized, organization follows. with the state or a recognized authority creating special paramilitary units or militias to carry out the killings. Polarization involves driving groups apart through propaganda, forbidding social interaction, and intimidating or liquidating moderate voices within the majority. Then comes preparation, the stage where victims are separated, concentrated into ghettos or camps, and lists are drawn up for future extermination. Extermination is the mass killing itself, which is treated by the perpetrators as a necessary, state-sanctioned goal. The final stage, often overlooked but absolutely critical, is denial, where perpetrators destroy evidence, intimidate witnesses, and deny the crime ever took place. Understanding these stages shows us that genocide is a deliberate bureaucratic process, not a spontaneous outbreak of irrational violence. It is driven by the very ideological systems we discussed in our previous program, often rooted in extreme nationalism, racial supremacy, or revolutionary fervor. These ideologies provide the false belief that eliminating a perceived threat is the only way to save the nation or purify the state. So, how does this systematic destruction of life stand against the universal ethical principles upheld by the Quran? The Quranic teaching on the sanctity of life offers the most profound and absolute condemnation of genocide. The central message establishes the immense, irreplaceable value of a single human life, irrespective of the person's background or creed. It reminds us of the profound moral gravity associated with taking an innocent life. Because of that, we decreed upon the children of Israel that whoever kills a soul, unless for a soul or for corruption, done in the land, it is as if he had killed all of mankind. Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 5, verse 32. This verse is an absolute prohibition on the murder of innocent people and simultaneously confers a universal responsibility. To take one life unjustly is to commit an assault on the entire human community. To save one life is to save all of humanity. This standard utterly dismantles the ideological framework of dehumanization that is essential for genocide to occur. If killing one person is equivalent to killing all of mankind, how catastrophic is the crime of systematically destroying an entire racial, ethnic, or religious group? Furthermore, the Quran strongly forbids any action that leads to the large-scale corruption in the land, or fasad fil ard. Genocide, being the ultimate form of systematic, organized destruction, perfectly embodies this corruption. And among people is he whose speech pleases you in worldly life, and he calls God to witness to what is in his heart, yet he is the fiercest of opponents. And when he goes away, he strives upon the earth to create corruption and destroy crops and progeny. And God does not like corruption. Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 205. The phrase, destroy crops and progeny, is a powerful metaphor for genocide, the calculated destruction of life and the means of survival for an entire community. The systematic targeting of the future by preventing births or killing children is precisely what genocide aims to achieve. The Quranic emphasis on adl, justice, also serves as a direct ethical counter to the selective hatred and injustice of genocide. Justice is not negotiable, nor is it conditional on the victim's identity or the perpetrator's political goals. We are commanded to stand up for justice universally, without compromise or prejudice. O you who have believed, be persistently firm in justice, witnesses for God, even if it be against yourselves or parents and relatives. Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 5, verse 8. This command means that even the hatred of a people should never lead to injustice. How much more so should it prevent the crime of genocide? The moral failure of genocide begins long before the killing. It begins with the failure of conscience and the abandonment of universal justice. It begins when people accept the narrative of dehumanization and allow political or religious ideology to eclipse fundamental human rights. When the world is silent, it becomes an accomplice to the denial stage, which is the final refuge of the genocidaires. This brings us to the crucial role of the bystander and the concept of global responsibility. The failure to intervene in the Rwandan genocide remains a profound moral scar on the international community. Many nations refuse to label the events as genocide, because doing so would legally mandate intervention under the 1948 Convention. The lesson is clear. Recognizing the crime is the first essential step toward prevention. The international principle of the responsibility to protect, R2P, was established partly in response to these failures. R2P asserts that state sovereignty is not a shield. If a state fails to protect its own population from mass atrocities, the international community has a responsibility to intervene. Prevention, however, starts much earlier, long before the extermination phase. It requires courageously fighting against the stages of classification, symbolization, and, most importantly, dehumanization. It requires promoting pluralism, protecting minority rights, and ensuring that all citizens are treated equally under the rule of law. When a government begins to systematically strip rights from a targeted group, or uses state media to refer to them as vermin, the world must recognize these as red flags in the preparation stage of genocide. The ultimate defense against genocide is a global commitment to the shared human identity and the ethical framework that prohibits oppression. This responsibility is explicitly enjoined in the Quran, which calls believers to be agents of justice and reject those who create disorder and violence. To define genocide is to issue a permanent warning. We must never again allow prejudice, ideology, or political ambition to obliterate the sanctity of human life. The crime of genocide is singular because its intent is not merely to defeat an enemy, but to permanently erase them from the face of the earth. It is an attack on creation itself, and the response must be a unified human defense of every single life. This concludes our difficult yet necessary examination of the crime of genocide. We have defined it through the rigorous lens of international law. We have traced its terrifying patterns through history, and we have judged it against the highest ethical bar set by the Quran, where one life holds the value of all humanity. The insights we gain from combining global history with divine wisdom must empower us to be more than just passive observers. We must be active agents of conscience, ready to speak truth to power and stand against injustice wherever it manifests. We are committed here at QURANxINSIGHT to providing you with the context and the moral compass to navigate these complex issues. If this analysis has deepened your understanding of the moral imperative against mass atrocities, we would be profoundly grateful for your support in spreading this message of clarity and justice. Our goal is to foster a globally conscious community that understands both the mechanisms of conflict and the power of ethical resistance. We believe that by understanding the stages of genocide, we become better equipped to stop it before it reaches the point of no return. Your engagement is critical to making this platform sustainable and far-reaching. So, please take a moment right now to affirm the value of this deep, necessary discussion. If you found clarity and ethical grounding in today's program, please hit the like button on this video. Your likes help propel this content into wider visibility, ensuring more people engage with these crucial issues. If you know someone who needs to hear this perspective, a student, a teacher, or a concerned citizen, please share this video across your social platforms and communities. Share the knowledge of the UN Convention and the universal moral principles that prohibit this crime. And, finally, if you seek ongoing insight into global events through a lens of faith and reason, we strongly encourage you to subscribe to the QURANxINSIGHT channel. Join our growing community of thinkers and moral agents dedicated to understanding the world through wisdom. Thank you for walking this difficult path of truth with us today. Until the next deep dive, may justice and peace guide our actions.